Welcome to another exciting episode of the Sports World with Patrick today. Today we are joined by someone who plays a vital but often behind the scenes role in the world of hockey, Damon Wheeler, the equipment manager for the Sioux City Musketeers. Uh, in a sport like hockey where precision and performance are key, Damien's job goes for beyond just maintaining gear, from making sure players have the right skates, sticks, and pads to handling the logistics of travel and game day preparation. He's a critical part of the team's success. Damien, it's awesome to have you on the show. Let's start with this. The role of an equipment manager in hockey is so much more than just what people might think. What first drew you to this line of work, and what does a typical day look like for you with the Musketeers?
First off, I would like to say thank you for having me on the show. Pretty honored. Um, yeah, typical day here normally starts at about roughly 6, 7 in the morning, and I'm normally here until about, you know, 5, 6 o'clock at night, depending on, if it's leading up to a game or if it's just, a normal practice day. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess what kind of drew me into this was, I've been around hockey my entire life, so I always never had a problem being around it. And then when I graduated high school, I happened to know one of the assistant coaches at the college there in Huntsville, Alabama, and I kind of was just shot in the dark. Was just like, hey, maybe I can try and like see if I can do this. If not, no worries. And then they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you a shot. Like we'll teach you how to do it. We'll, all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, there's no way this is actually real. But, I guess that's kind of how I got started into it. And then spent about 7 years there in Huntsville. And then, when the team folded in, I want to say the summer of 21, the Sioux City Musketeers reached out to me and they saw the experience that I had had, and they were like, "Yeah, we think you would be a good fit for us. What do you think about driving all the way to Sioux City, Iowa, and working for a junior hockey team?" I mean, it was just one of those things where scary at the moment, but I turned out to be a very good decision on my part.
Yeah, I remember those days at UH. Those were definitely some memorable days there.
Hmm.
And I do sort of have this question before we get into the next question here, because you mentioned going to UAH all the way, and of course you were born in Denver, Colorado, so the Avalanche had a very big hold on
Yeah, they
the
did.
city itself. But so what sort of drew you in general to UAH? It's a southern market, a very traditionally football based market, and on top of that, it was at a Division 1 school, and then sort of like throughout COVID, right when they were starting to cancel or not cancel, but sort of get rid of the program, and the fundraising happened, and they brought the program back for a while, for that one season. So sort of just give us a look into that, how that, what really made that decision.
I mean, what kind of drew me into, UAH first was, when my parents' company had like transferred him to Huntsville, we would go to the college hockey games, every weekend. So I kind of got to watch that version of college hockey. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to work for, a college hockey team one day. And, lo and behold, it, became true, a couple years after the fact. So, I mean, that was just pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, I mean, with it being the southern market, you know, you have like Tuscaloosa about 4.5 hours away. You've got, you know, Auburn, just a little bit further. So like, I mean, with it being a football state, and having, a Division 1 hockey program, right down the road was actually kind of cool. So like, it was kind of like a win-win for me, I guess. Um, but yeah.
And so, as you mentioned, you're in the UCH or the USHL now. So what are the most challenging aspects of being an equipment manager for a USHL team?
Um, I would say the constant turnover, whether it be, players coming in and, getting traded at some point during the season, or it's an affiliate player that, we have on our affiliate list that comes up, and then I have to make sure that they have, all the extra equipment that they would need, just like the normal equipment that each player would need now, like helmet, gloves, pants, workout stuff, normal apparel like hoodies, that sort of stuff. But then, like, the other part of it is like trying to figure out, you know, coordinating with other equipment managers in this league to figure out, what jerseys to wear on which night, if there's, you know, I'm just going to use like military night when that's coming closer to, happening, like getting jerseys made for that night. Same with cancer nights, you know, or other like specialty event nights, having like a jersey specific for that event, and then turning around and auctioning off those jerseys after and putting all the proceeds towards um, that said event, whether it be, breast cancer awareness, like we did my first year here when I was in Sioux City, or, we, our military night one year, we paid for all the military personnel in Sioux City. We paid for their ticket to the game. We paid for, I think it was up to like $250 worth of like food for the game, drinks if they needed it. And then if they were coming from out of town, we paid for their flight to get to Sioux City as well. So, I mean, it's a great organization. I love being in this league, but I mean, with it being junior hockey, there are certain things like the turnover with the players, or, the constant like order of, new equipment that's not normally prevalent with like college hockey. So,
Now, I know ever since the incident in England where the neck of a player got caught by a skate, I know now the new requirement is that anybody under 18 has to wear those neck guards. Have you guys had any trouble getting really neck guards in, and has that become a headache for equipment managers in the USHL?
um, not really. I mean, kind of. Well, part of it was because, we were one of the first teams. As soon as that event happened, like it was a very terrific thing to happen. Like no one ever wants that to happen, or not terrific. Sorry, terrible. Mixed up my words there. Sorry. Um, but like it was a terrible, terrible thing. But like the kid happened to play here in Sioux City at one point. So our ownership, as soon as the event happened, was on the phone with um, a great company by the name of Warroad right now. They make high quality shirts. Like they include cut resistant, sleeves at the bottom, just in case, like if a skate goes over the top, like you're protected. And then they added in a shirt where it has the neck guard built into it. So we had been basically in contact this past summer going into this season. So we kind of put a first order in for that before any of the other teams, and then it hasn't really been difficult to, I guess, reorder that stock when we need it. But then to get like just a neck guard in general, it's been a little bit more difficult just because USA Hockey kind of mandated it. If you're under the age of 18, you have to have neck laceration protection. So then the majority of the kids, they go out and they get just a neck guard and then good to go. Whereas I'd rather the kids that come here, they have a shirt that has it built in. That way, if they like the shirt, it has a neck guard in it. If they don't like the shirt, then they can just get a neck guard. And it's a win-win situation because you can either figure out if they want the shirt, or if they don't want the shirt and they like to just wear nothing underneath, they can just get a neck guard. And it's easy that way.
Are there any unique or more memorable requests you've had from players regarding their equipment, whether it's in college or in at the USHL level?
Oh, God. Oh, I'll go one for both. I had one. Oh gosh, I think it was my second or third year with UAH. Kid by the name of Brendan Saunier, one of my best friends still. Um, you know, he had a certain superstition that he had to complete every day, and part of it involved him. Before the game, he'd come up, ask me to, make sure his laces were lined up properly on his skates. And then as warm ups would come around, like he'd come like random times during warm up, just squirt me in the face with water. And at the time, I was like, okay, I don't get it. But like, looking back on it now, I'm like, okay, that was actually pretty cool to be a part of. Like, you hear about all these kids that, have certain superstitions that they do. And you're always like, that's weird. Like, I wouldn't know how I would feel about that. But, it's kind of surreal to be in that, you know, trust of the player to be a part of that. And then, the one junior one was, my first year here, we had a kid by the name of Ben Steves, greatest person in the world. Like every now and again, I'll still like text him, see how he's doing in Charlotte for the Florida Panthers organization. Um, but he would always come back and would make sure that I was having a good day. And if I wasn't having a good day, he would find a way to turn my mood around, have a good day. And then he would piggyback off of that. And then he would inspire all the other players in the room to just forget about whatever was going on in their life, just focus on the hockey, focus on the playing. And then, it ended up being, a nice little bookend to the year when we hoisted the Clark Cup championship. That was pretty awesome to be a part of. So, lot of good memories, but I mean, those two in particular were kind of really awesome to me.
Yeah. Well, I think Brennan needs you back with him because at the moment, the last time I checked Elite Prospect, he was on track for 245 penalty minutes in the
Sounds
year,
about right.
which would be an all time high for him because he had 121 his senior year of or not high school, senior year at UAH. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, he's
can
always been a scrappy kid, so
oh yeah.
I I'm not surprised that he's on that pace, but God, miss a kid.
Can you also describe the importance of proper equipment maintenance and player performance and safety?
Yes, so that is actually a really huge thing. I've been a huge stickler on if your equipment is starting to break, let me know so I can fix it. Because, like, let's just say shin pad. Your shin pad breaks right on the knee. The sharp plastic from it breaking, if you get hit with another puck again, the plastic bends in and then you can, like, stab into your knee. And then more issues start happening. And then, worst comes to worst, like, you take one more shot and then there's nothing there to protect your knee and you take it full on. Well, now your kneecap is pretty much like shattered. Then you gotta get surgery to get it fixed. Then you're out for a while. Or, you know, the with helmets, like when helmets break, like, it did its job. Like, time to get you in a new one to protect your head. Or, gloves, like the palm rips out and you happen to, catch a puck, you're cutting your hand open. So, keeping that stuff basically like fixed to a degree to where like there's not going to be any issues in the future, or replacing the item completely, you know, helps keep the players safe, helps from, injuring other players, you know, keeps them at ease in their mind per se. But then, it also helps me because then I'm thinking, okay, I don't have to worry about this anymore because he's protected. I don't have to worry about, this happening in the future because this was fixed. You know, or I mean, even as down to the smallest detail of the skate blades. Like, if you're off by like, I don't know, millimeter and a half, player can't skate, and if the player can't skate, he can't perform, and then it's more of a issue that is on the player to where like he can't perform because of XYZ and yada yada yada. Whereas like I'm in that position to where I can fix it to where they're not having to worry about that. They're just having to worry about playing the game, helping the team win, and then hopefully get a championship one day.
Yeah, those are definitely. I think I have 3 pairs of skates now. Um, and of course, every time I went to the skate shop, I'm like, "Yeah, can you get this sharpened?" And normally, I like it when it's done by the hand, but nowadays everybody switched over to the machines. So yeah,
Yeah, that is the downside. Like with the machines coming in, like it's eliminating, the hand sharpening where it's like the physical touch where you can like kind of feel how the blade is level. Whereas, I mean, don't get me wrong, the machines are great if it's the right one. And I mean, to everyone, like they're not going to have the money to get a $40,000 machine that sharpens them and then has a laser level already built in the machine. Like I understand that. Even like a little portable machine like a Sparks, it does a good enough job, um, but to a certain degree. Once you get higher up in the ranks where it's more of you, you know like junior A hockey, which is what I'm a part of now. Like you kind of have to have either that personal touch to where they're checking the blades, they're making sure there's no issues, or you have a person who manages the machine to make sure that the blades are laser leveled properly, there's no issues and all that. So yeah, I mean, to a degree the machines are good, but I've always been a stickler for having a physical person doing it, because then I know, okay, he checked it, he made sure that it was good to go, no issues from here on.
and then what is the most unusual or funniest situation you've ever encountered in your career?
Oh gosh, I think this was funny because it happened to me. I don't know if everyone else thought it was funny, but my the my first year here in Sioux City, the year we won it all, we went up to Sioux Falls to play a game. Warm ups finished. I was literally holding steel in my hand, not even thinking about it. I go out to step onto the freshly resurfaced ice, and I eat shit in front of like hundreds of fans. But I don't think the fans saw, and I got video back later where like our video person literally, like for some odd reason he had it on, and he literally got a video of me eating shit right before the first period in Sioux Falls. And I'm like, oh my god, that is so funny, so funny.
I
But
remember when it happened at UAH.
oh, yeah, let's let's not open that one. Yeah, that was a pretty bad one. I'm trying to forget that one. Just trying to completely forget about that one. But yeah, I'd say other than that, the funniest thing I've seen is oh, we had a fan my second year here in Sioux City during the teddy bear toss night threw a stuffed hot dog onto the ice. And nobody knew where the stuffed hot dog came from. Nobody thought, why is there a stuffed hot dog on the ice? But it was just a stuffed hot dog, and that was it. Like there was nothing else. So like the refs were worried. Why is this out here? Players are looking at me like, what the fuck is this? Like season ticket holders are yelling at me, why is there a hot dog on the ice? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, why is this hot dog on the ice? Like, I just don't get it.
Oh, Damien, that had to be a fun event. And then on top of that, so I know being an equipment manager every day is sort of not easy. So if you could trade places with another role on the team for a day, who would it be?
Ooh, if I could trade places with another staff for a day. Ooh, that's actually a really good one. Probably the athletic trainer. Um, Probably just because I like to, I've always been a visual learner growing up. So like, I like that physical aspect of, doing something to help people. Whether that be like, let's say, I mean, treating an ankle injury, because when I was in high school, I was a student athletic trainer. So I have that little bit of a background to where I would know what I'm doing, but, I've been removed from it from so long that like I wouldn't know fully how to do it, but I would know kind of the understanding of it. So, I'd probably say athletic trainer. Probably wouldn't be very good, but, you know, that'd probably be the one I would switch for a day with.
That's a good one to think of. I just thought about a memory back from 1819. I don't remember if you remember it at UAH. So the
There's
athletic,
a lot of good ones that year. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, as an equipment manager, you get to see the inside of the locker room. Definitely when, you were at UAH, your room was sort of right there by the lounge. Um, so in what type of way do you help foster a positive attitude in that locker room? If you see players not having a good day, or even like how you mentioned that one player that you guys have now in Charlotte, that was there when you were there, that would always make everybody's day
Yeah.
much.
I mean, it's kind of an easy thing to say, but it's also like hard to explain it. Um, I mean, best way that I've figured out to do it, I mean, just for me, like it could be different for other people, but you know, every now and again, someone's going to have a bad day. Like it's going to happen. Um, but like sometimes if they're having like a really bad day and they're kind of like keeping themselves, like they don't really want to talk. Like, I kind of like, we try to go up and say, hey, listen, I can see you're having a bad day. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to like vent to me? Like just something, because, even a little bit can help, whether it be, you know, giving them a little bit of positive affirmation, like, hey, if you want to talk, I'm here. If you want to vent, I'm here. Like, open ears here. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. But I'd rather be that person. Like, if you want to talk to someone about it, I'd like to be that. But I understand that not everyone's going to be that person. So, but yeah.
Um, and then you've been with the Musketeers since the end of the 2021-2022 season, I believe, because I believe that's the year that
Yes.
UH was over with. So how have you seen this team evolve over the time that you've been the equipment manager with the Musketeers?
I mean, for starters, like just the human beings that come in or that came in when I first got here to where they are now have really grown a lot. Like they came in as kids, they're leaving as adults, you know, or they come in for a year, they arrive a little immature, but then, as the season progresses, they mature enough to a point to where they're like, okay, it's probably time for me to go to college hockey, get a little bit more mature, become more of a man. Um, and even some of the staff that I've had here, we've, you know, my first year we were more like a family. It was always, if we're doing something, we're all together. My second year, it wasn't so much that. I mean, it was more like, you know, I trust you to do your job. I would hope you trust me to do mine, you know, and it was built more on like trust of, everyone's doing their part to make the team better. Everyone's doing their part to try and get a championship. And then last year, it was kind of a mix of both. Like it was a little bit of family, but then it was also more of like a trust that everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing to get the job done, you know, try to have a team to win a championship and, make a long run. Um, and we did. We made about as long of a run as we could. we just ran into a hot team in the conference finals last year, and you know, it was a little bittersweet watching them raise the cup, but at the same time, I was a little bit more happy just because of the person that I knew that was on that team that had sacrificed through a bunch of stuff in previous years. You know, he you know had basically dealt with a lot, and then for him to watch him raise that, it kind of was like it was like, oh yeah, I'm upset that you guys won it, but like I'm so happy for him. Like he deserved it. He busted his ass all year, did what needed to be done. Proud of him. So yeah.
What I also do have this question for you, sort of, because I know you just talked about what happened at one of your games in front of 10,000 fans with a steel in your hand. So, but what is the most stressful part of preparing for a game, and do you have any pregame rituals or traditions to ensure that everything goes smoothly, just sort of how like Brennan always had at
Yeah.
UAH?
Yes. The I would say the one stressful thing um that I would say is the pregame setup. Like the pregame setup normally will start about 9 a.m. Um, and if it's a team that we're playing both Friday and Saturday night, then there's extra prep that goes into it. Um, you know, I like to have towels, soap, some tape over there just in case they need it. And then, if they're staying overnight, then, having jersey rack over there, some hangers, and then, for the coaches, like I like to add a little bit of like beer in their cooler, or, I'll try and have beer in their cooler for, when they arrive, just some little things here and there. And then, the actual like game setup, like having game pucks ready, having the benches set up, having jerseys set out in the room, um, you know, just the setup in general can be quite stressful if you don't like understand it completely. But, you know, I've been doing this for, gosh, 11 years total now. Wow. Goodness gracious. So I kind of have like an understanding of it. So I know what I need to do, what I don't need to do, and then all of that. And then I used to not have like superstitious rituals, but when I first got here to Sioux City, I started on one, and it ended up helping. So whenever we're home playing games Friday, Saturday, there's like a little adult league skate that happens to start here at our game rink, and I'll jump in, skate around for an hour and a half, play hockey with them, and then I'll get off the ice, shower quickly, and then drive on down to the Chipotle here in town, get a massive bowl, a large drink, a quesadilla, come back, bury that in 15 minutes, and then I'll finish the 3 sets of steel left over from the pregame setup. And then I just sit for like 15 minutes staring at a black screen on my laptop. And then I'm like, okay, I'm good to go now. It's weird talking about it because like, you know, everyone thinks they don't have a superstitious ritual, but everyone does, even if they don't know it. And to find out that that's what I really have to do was kind of like weird. I was like, ooh, that's odd. Like I didn't know I had to do that just to be ready for a game. So I mean it's changed a little bit over the years. Like I don't do as much food from Chipotle, and I don't stare at a blank screen for as long, but I do a little bit here and there. Like I'll read a little bit out of a book. Um, if I'm a little bored, or if I get all the pre setup done, before the skate, then I might stay out on the ice a little bit longer, and bag my skill, bag myself, and just do suicides constantly up and down the ice. Or if I have a lot of time on my hands, I'll just go home and you know have a nice cold glass of Coca-Cola and then drive back, or I'll stand outside for a little bit. It just depends upon the weekend, depends upon the weather and the time that I have after the pregame setup.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was at UH, my biggest superstition was not touching any of the players' sticks when we were out
Hmm.
there just playing around, and then not talking to any of the players because and I forgot to mention this. I also do have Jesper Orval on my podcast coming up later on.
Oh my gosh.
So
Oh, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
I know. I literally was because he mentioned something to me. He mentioned the back when he was at UAH. He mentioned a girl to me, and she ended up being here in the U.S. So she's playing college hockey. So I went to go see her a little bit. So yeah, I got him coming up on Wednesday. So
Okay.
it's gonna be fun. Um, and then so you've been an equipment manager for now 11 years, 7 of that spent at UAH.
Yep.
So how has the equipment manager role evolved over the years with advancements in technology?
I'd say it's made it actually a whole lot easier for equipment managers. I use Excel a lot more than I normally did in the past. Just keeping inventory. I have like a system now to where, if I pull a stick out of a cabinet, first thing I do is not give it to the player. It's go into my Excel sheet, update the numbers, you know, making sure the inventory is up to date. And then obviously the, equipment itself has tremendously like improved over the years. Like, I believe my first year, being an equipment manager, the skates were pretty heavy, the steel was heavy, whereas now, like, the skates are extremely light. The steel is light. It's, harder quality steel. It holds an edge better, not having to sharpen them as much. And then, the material inside the skates dry a whole lot faster than they did, 11 years ago. The sticks, you know, they've gotten lighter and lighter and lighter, but then they've also become way more durable to where there's less breakage. And, with these companies making better quality products, they stand by their warranty periods in a sense. Like, if it breaks within you having it within a week, send it back. We'll replace it free of charge, get you a brand new item, and then good to go. So I'd say, yeah, over the 11 years, the equipment and the technology within the equipment and the technology as a whole, has just made it a whole lot easier for equipment managers, all around the world. I mean, hell, there's machines now that you literally put a skate in and it sharpens it perfectly. Like, we didn't have those 11 years ago.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's pretty awesome to see over the years, all the technological advances, that have helped equipment managers like me to, do our job properly.
yeah. So I also do have this question because I know lately skates have gotten the technology for the steel has gotten much better. I remember back in the day when they didn't have that little release or the little release for the steel that you could just release the skate or the blade from and put them back on.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I know CCM and Bauer they have their different ways of doing that stuff with their skates. Um, so has that made it easier with changing the steel out, or is it sort of because I know you probably have steel that's already sharpened that gets put in it, but
Yes. Yes, it actually has made it a whole lot easier because instead, like in the past, you would have to have the player take off his skate in order for you to use like a screwdriver to basically like go through the bottom of the skate, unscrew the blade, pull the blade out, put a fresh one in, screw it back in, and then give it back to the player. Whereas now, um, you just have to worry about um, twisting a dial on the CCM skates, pulling the seal, putting the new ones in, or using the trigger with the Bauer skates now, and now the True skates. Um, just using the trigger, pulling out the old steel, put in the fresh one. Player maybe misses a shift at most, if that. Like, you know, the professionals, they can, change the steel in like under 15 seconds. I'd like to think I could do that one day, but, you know, sometimes the skate holders are a little difficult. So, like, maybe it's more of like a minute to change the steel because the steel gets frozen inside the holder. And sometimes it's quick and you're in and out in 10 seconds changing the steel. So, yeah, there's also a lot of key events that happen there. So the ice conditions, like, if it's soft ice, blades will be in and out quick. If it's hard ice and the blade freezes in the holder, then you're going to have to struggle a little bit with it. But, it definitely makes it a whole lot easier having the trigger and then the dial with the skates.
Yeah. And then, so, you haven't been in, again, in the equipment manager position and doing the job for over 11 years. What advice would you give somebody who's interested in pursuing that at the moment, whether they're in high school or in college and trying to get into that position?
I would say definitely, like, if you're able to, um, like, if you're in a town that has an equipment manager for the sport that you want to try and work with, I would try and contact them and see if they wouldn't mind if you shadowed them for a while. And then they basically showed you everything on how to do the job. And then, you know, later on, have them basically have you as an intern throughout an entire year. That way you can get the full aspect of, this is how you do it day to day. This is what happens, if this happens, or, this is how you would approach this situation when, a stick breaks mid game and then you got to like rush to, get a backup stick made for him while he's using his current backup stick that he had originally. Or, in the case of like football, like guy's cleat completely just blows up on him and, he needs a fresh pair of cleats right away. Well, his cleats are in the locker room. Well, someone's got to run and grab them. Or, if it's, basketball, like basketball, goes up, gets stuck on the rim and pops. Like, it's all the little things that, you know, I kind of wish I would have done that my first year, like actually shadow someone first and then learn the job that way. Because I probably would have been a little bit better off that first year with UAH. I wouldn't have had to spend 8 months learning how to sharpen skates and do budgeting and, all the necessary stuff to do this job. I kind of wish I would have had someone to teach me that. Um, but I mean, in all honesty, like, best way to learn is to have someone show you the ropes and then, you know, kind of like that flight or fights response, like push you into the flames, see if you can do it. If you can't, then just go back to the drawing board and relearn again. And you just keep that process of toss in the fire, learn, toss in the fire, learn. Like, you get a understanding of how to do the job a certain way that it's supposed to be done. And then it gets to a point where you're like, wow, like I have this nailed down. Like, just throw me in the fire right now. I'll get it done. And like, I'll do it just how it's supposed to be done. And then it's like, well, my work here is done. I've taught you all I can teach you. Like, start applying, like, cause you have it nailed down. Like, but yeah.
How does the Musketeer organization engage with the community, and how does it contribute? How does it contribute to that effort?
I say our front office does a really good job of getting the players out in the community. Like, you know, they're actually going to go to a community event today. You know, they're going to a local pizza place and they're going to meet like fans all around, that live in Sioux City, like interact with them. They'll probably get asked how their day's going, like what's it like being a part of the Musketeers. These kids, they love it. They love doing the community events. They love seeing the people in this town. The town loves supporting them in return. So it's kind of like a win-win. Like they go out, they start to, I guess, know the fans, get to understand the fans, get to meet them, put a name to a face, and then in return, the fans, they come to the games, they support the players, they make signs for the players. Like I saw a sign last home game for one of our defensemen. Um, and I was just like that little aspect. You see a sign that's just for you, and you're just like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like fans in this town really support the team here, and the fact that our organization wants our players to go out, interact with the community, interact with our fans, get them to come back to more games. Like, I just think it's like one of those like circle effects where like event A happens, then event B, C, D, all the way back to A, and then it's just a loop around, I guess.
I don't know if you guys have it on your schedule or if you guys have played at USA Hockey Arena. I've been there quite a good bit.
Yep.
The last few years, of course, during the summer, during the World Junior Showcase. Maybe next time you guys play at the USA Hockey Arena, I'll just make a sign and say, "Hey, Damien."
Yeah. I mean, we went there last year. Um, and like I had never been to the arena that they're in now. I had been to the old one um, when they were still, I believe, close to where the University of Michigan is right now. But now they're, I think, in Plymouth, Michigan. I think
Yeah.
is the correct town. Um, but yeah, I mean, even their facility now there is just top notch. I mean, when you have basically USA Hockey basically putting all that money into basically two teams that are going to go do international play, whether it be the under 18 team the first half of the year and then the under 17 team the second half of the year. Like it also helps those kids understand like the USHL as a whole. Like, the USHL is, one of the best junior leagues to be in right now, aside from the major junior, where you have the OHL, the QMJHL, the WHL, and all that. But, the USHL, like, it's true what they say. Like, they develop really good hockey players, but then they also develop really good kids. They develop them to be better human beings in the long run. So, you know, me personally, like, I think in all honesty, I probably should have started here in the USHL and then gone to college. But, as it worked out, like, just happened to be a hockey team in Huntsville, Alabama. They took a shot on me. It ended up working out for 7 years. Came here to Sioux City, and, it's been working out since. And, um, now kind of curious to see where that would lead after this year.
Maybe you go to Hershey.
That would be nice. That would actually be really nice. Nice little town. Apparently they've got a really good hockey team. Possibly might three-peat. Um, who knows? Uh, actually had a old colleague of mine. She was working for the South Carolina Stingrays, which is part of the Washington Caps organization, and she got called up to Hershey to help them out during a weekend, and she had nothing but good things to say about the town as a whole. The people in that town. So I thought that'd be a good spot. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day I'll be, all the way up in the pros where, the National Hockey League people are, who knows at this point? Like,
Yeah.
one can always hope at least.
And then, what do you hope to achieve? Because we just talked about you leaving possibly to Hershey to go work with Brendan. How do you hope to, what do you hope to achieve or even leave behind as a legacy with the Musketeers?
Um, I'd like to leave, the willingness to actually like come to work, see these kids every day, help them grow as people, help them learn to, you know, be better and not worry about all the small things in life. Sometimes the small things don't really matter as much. Like it's all the, end picture. Like, you know, something minor happens early in the day. You can't just let that ruin the rest of your day. Like you can always like put it in the past, move on, and, do better things the remainder of the day. Like, but then once the day is over, forgotten about. Like, shouldn't have it dwell on you, multiple days. I mean, hopefully, like, I can achieve a, you know, good attitude to, the next person that they do bring in after me has that same attitude as well to, help these players, become better people, hopefully help them, become the best players that they can to win a championship, you know, that sort of stuff. I always like if it wasn't just about the job, like I still would be here because I like to help them develop. Like as much as, or I mean, as much as or as little as I develop, like I like to help others develop as well. So like I'm I currently like I help the players get to that point to where they can go play college hockey to a little extent. Like I help them figure out, you know, what skate sharpening they need so that they can perform the best. I help them figure out, you know, their stick curves to help them control the puck, the flexes to help them get shots off faster, if they need to be more on their toes so they can attack more on the ice, or if they need to be kind of like more on their heels to like let the play come to them, I like to help them figure that out. Or, certain equipment preferences, you know, to help them be better at what they do. Because, I mean, ultimately, of all these kids, a good majority of them will make it all the way, just because, they have that work ethic. They developed it while they were, in this league. And, it's also good to see, a couple years down the road where you're like, oh, yeah, I remember this kid. Like, I helped him during this year to figure out this and this and this. And now he's, a big shot, like in the National Hockey League. And, he's doing just the same stuff, like same routines, still trusting this and this and this. And, it's one of those little things where you're like, okay, I had a little part to play in that. And, it's kind of like one of those, like, you feel a little happy for it, but you're like, oh, okay. I mean, I still wish I could get to that point too with you, like just experience it with you. But, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And then, so I'm going to ask you some really quick questions, some fun
Okay.
questions. Who is your most favorite player you've ever worked with?
Brendan Saunier. Not even a doubt.
Who
Not
who
even
who
a doubt.
who was the most superstitious player that you played with or you worked with?
Oh, I would say kid last year, his name is Caden Shahan. He needed like every single like warm up period, like had to have a piece of gum like completely unwrapped and like put on top of the boards for him under like it had to be towel on top of the boards, piece of gum unwrapped, and then literally right next to the towel, bottle of water, bottle of Gatorade. Like every single time. Like warm up, first period, second period, third period. Like that's always how he had to start it. And I'm just like, that's just doing too much. Like, I get it, but like if you're not gonna score like 50 goals in a year, then it's not really worth it. But I mean, Caden Shahan did have a lot of goals last year. So I mean, it kind of evened out, I guess.
And then most your most favorite moment from all time since you've been an equipment manager.
Oh, like that's tough because, you know, there's moments where I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like going to Ralph Engelstad Arena, going to Magnus Arena, like those moments where I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like I get to be here because of my job. Like this is so awesome. But then I go back to moment my first year here in Sioux City, winning a championship, hoisting that cup over my head, and like, oh, like it's hard to choose between those kind of moments because they all kind of like it was the same feeling all throughout of it. But you know, it's tough because all three of those could easily be a number one. But you know, I would have to say my favorite overall moment was winning the Clark Cup my first year, hoisting that over my head, and then knowing from here on out, like no matter where I go in life, I always have a little piece of history that is just mine. Like no one else can claim that except for the other people that were a part of that organization, part of that team, part of that staff, like literally in history forever after that. So I'd say that's pretty much like it's not far off from the other two, but it's got to be the number one at this point.
And then name 5 players who you would want to have Thanksgiving dinner with. Since we Thanksgiving was just this last Thursday, that you would have at your Thanksgiving dinner table if you could spend it all day with them.
Oh, oh, all day. Oh, does it have to be players that I worked with, or can it be just any player in general?
Any player, or even a player you played with, you worked with.
Oh gosh. All right. I would have to say, starting off hot, Joe Sakic, idol growing up, like never really liked anyone else. So Joe Sakic to start. Um, obviously I would have Brendan Saunier just because like haven't seen him in so long. Like would love to catch up. Can't ruin that. Um, you know, oddly enough, I'd like to have Chris Draper just because of the whole like Red Wing Avalanche rivalry. I'd like to, you know, pick his brain about that, try and understand the full story because, being an Avs fan, I understood one side of it, but I want to know the full story so I can like have a full understanding. And then I'd say the last two is where it gets tough because I've had a lot of like really good players over the years that like could fit in that spot, but like there's just so many of them. So, I'd say it's a tie between a lot of them, but you know, obviously, like I got to go with the first captain that I ever worked with, Doug Reed. You know, great human being. Unreal mentor to me. Like growing up, being a young 18-year-old around college hockey players, like not knowing what the hell to do. He kind of helped in that process. So I definitely have him. And then, oh, this is probably going to hurt a lot because like there's a lot of really good favorites of mine. Um, but a recent one, a foreigner by the name of Ralph Bergmanis, psychopath. Like you want him on your team, you hate to play against him, will do anything to help his team win. And I mean anything. You hit someone wrong, he's first one out on the ice, beating this kid's face in. Like, you want to have him, like, miss the kid, like, would love to see him again. Hopefully I can see him, in 2 years when, we have the reunion from that championship team. But, you know, gosh, I think that would be my five. Yeah.
Well, it was good having you, Damien. Although we do have one thing in common, we both wish we could see Brandon Saunier. I actually
Yeah.
DM'd him on Instagram, and we were following each other on Instagram at the time, and then I got the unfollows. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll.
Yeah.
It was definitely good talking with you. Good to get to first of all catch up, and then of course your insight that you have given us or my guests on the podcast really about what the
Yeah.
equipment is all about. So Thank you for all of this. Thank you for taking your time to come on the podcast. It's very greatly appreciated, and hopefully we'll have you back on the podcast one day soon. Here, maybe if the Clark Championship, you guys win it, or maybe even
Yeah,
a guess. Who knows?
yeah. Thank you for having me. It was great catching up as well, man.
Great catching up with you. All right.